the fourth of our town hall meetings focused on our work preparing for the Maryland's Blueprint for Maryland's Future. We have been working on this effort for quite a few years now. We are live streaming our event tonight at smcps.org, so there are folks that are watching at home. We welcome them. We also will be posting it to our YouTube channel, and I want to thank the members of our team in the Department of Strategic Initiatives and the students here at the Forrest Center. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them for videotaping. In addition, if you have any questions that you'd like to share with the group, you can always email to blueprint@smcps.org, and we're happy to answer those questions as well. I want to welcome our board members who are here this evening, Mrs. Kathy Allen and Ms. Dorothy Andrews. Welcome. And we have a number of other guests that are going to be joining us here on the panel in just a moment, and Dr. Farrell will introduce those. And Dr. Smith's going to be bringing some remarks after the panel discussion before we break into those other groups, too. So we have a little change in the agenda there for that. We are going to have an overview of Pillar 2, followed by a panel discussion looking at each of the various components of Pillar 2. And then the last part of the evening is going to be breakout sessions at these table groups, looking and diving into deeper conversations about any of the questions. So just a little bit of background, and we've been providing this for each of our town halls, that this is following the work of the tremendous amount of legislation that was passed in 2020 and 2021. We had a number of steering committee meetings that met over those 2 school years in 2022 and 2023, and we submitted our blueprint plan last spring to get us started with this work. We have part 2 of that plan that's coming up, and so part of the work that we're doing here is gathering information from you all, getting questions that you all have about our work with these, with each of the areas of the blueprint, so that we can put together that plan that is due later this spring. We have our first part that's actually due at the end of this week, talking about all the systemic work that we're doing. There are 5 pillars. We've talked about early childhood, and we've talked about the expansion of pre-K. We've looked at, tonight, we're going to be looking at teachers and leaders. We had a session, our last one in February was on college career readiness, and then resources to support student success was the one just as we ended 2023. Governance and accountability is the work that goes around all of it. So when you look at Pillar 5, it is all the collective work and the accountability that goes with implementing the blueprint. If you have any questions about anything that we're sharing tonight or any of the work in the blueprint, you can go to smcps.org/blueprint, and we have an entire site there dedicated to that work. There's also opportunities on that site for you to provide additional input through a link there. So again, our town hall sessions, I've already talked a little bit about that. Here's our last one, and all of these sessions, again, are posted on that Blueprint site as well as our YouTube channel. So if you missed anything or you're late tuning in tonight, you can rewind and catch it there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Farrell, and he's going to provide some introductory remarks and get us going. Dr. Farrell. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Marr. Tonight, we will be discussing the implementation of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, Pillar 2. Pillar 2 is concentrated on high-quality and diverse teachers and leaders, which has many parts and includes various stakeholders. Tonight, I would like to welcome some of our stakeholders present here this evening. First, I would like to start with our most important stakeholders, our students. If you're a current SMCPS student in the room, please stand to be recognized. They're all around the outside. For our students to achieve excellence in their learning, we must work collaboratively with many stakeholder groups. Tonight, we are joined by our college and university partners, such as St. Mary's College of Maryland, Notre Dame of Maryland University, University of Maryland Global Campus, McDaniel College, and Towson University. We are also excited to welcome our employee associations, EASMIC, and our community partners such as the NAACP. Pillar 2 has a primary impact on our classroom teachers and school leaders. I would like to welcome our apprentices, teachers, as well as various school administrators, principals, and supervisors who have joined us this evening. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future legislation is transformative and intended to elevate the teaching profession. Under Pillar 2, there are several expectations. First, Pillar 2 challenges and expects colleges and universities in Maryland to look at their student body and their teacher preparation programs, and to diversify the composition of the students enrolled in their programs to prepare and graduate a diverse cohort of teachers ready to enter the classroom and to resemble the diversity of our classrooms. Second, Maryland has historically been an import state for hiring teachers. The teacher education preparation programs in Maryland do not graduate enough teachers each year to match the staffing needs throughout the state. The blueprint also challenges Maryland colleges and universities to increase the number of graduates each year while maintaining the highest level of preparation. Next, school systems are tasked with ensuring our most needy students have high quality and diverse teachers in their classrooms. Students who have struggled academically or who are identified in areas of concentrated poverty should have a diverse cadre of teachers who have demonstrated exceptional teaching. And through increased salaries and high quality professional development, the blueprint expects to increase the retention of teachers and leaders. Often, teachers leave the profession within their first 5 years of teaching. SMCPS has historically exceeded the national average of 60%. For the past 2 years, our retention rates have been 90% or higher, a great accomplishment. Lastly, Pillar 2 expects school systems to implement a career ladder for educators. Through our collaborative efforts with EASMIC, we have proposed a career ladder and salary increases over the next 4 years, which will be presented to the Board of Education at their meeting on March 20th. The blueprint has placed specific requirements on school systems throughout the state. One of the most prominent requirements is to increase the salaries of teachers, specifically the starting salary for new teachers beginning in their careers. Tonight, Ms. McCourt will be going into detail about how school systems were required to increase salaries and implement a starting salary of at least $60,000 by July 1, 2025. It also requires a redesign of teacher preparation programs in Maryland. One major change is implementing a year-long internship. And for these internships, we work with our college and university partners to match student teachers with placements that provide them with the opportunities to experience diverse learners and work in high-achieving and high-quality teachers who have demonstrated mastery of teaching. Again, implementing a career ladder that provides teachers with the opportunity to pursue a master's degree or national board certification and various levels on the career ladder is another requirement. We will meet this requirement once the proposed negotiated agreement is voted on and adopted by the Board of Education. SNCPS has already developed a robust professional development opportunity and an award-winning induction program for new teachers to SNCPS for their first 3 years of teaching. As we continue to implement the blueprint, we are also required to implement classroom-level interactions for administrators. The blueprint will require a prescribed percentage of classroom time for administrators. Our administrators are already present in our classrooms each day in various ways and make quality connections with staff and students. And lastly, school systems are required to improve recruitment and retention efforts to attract and retain a diverse workforce. Through the pandemic, SMCPS expanded our recruitment efforts by partnering with Career Fairs Plus, our online recruitment platform, for our online recruitment needs. We have been a long-standing partner with historically Black colleges and universities, as well as the Diversity in Ed organization. Last school year, we began a partnership with a company called HBCU Careers, which makes sure all of our vacancies and job fairs are advertised at all HBCUs and in their publications. SMCPS has been preparing for the implementation of the blueprint, and many of our processes in place before the blueprint are on track to meet the expectations and requirements of the blueprint. The governing body for implementing the blueprint is the Accountability and Implementation Board, or the AIB. To support the implementation of various pillars of the blueprint, the AIB connected strategic facilitators with local school systems. We are very happy to be working with our strategic facilitator, Ms. Amy Morton. I would like to welcome Ms. Morton to share some of her comments about how SMCPS is working toward the requirements and expectations of the blueprint.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I come from Pennsylvania. I will share briefly that up there I lead a coalition called the PA Needs Teachers, because for years we exported almost half of the teachers that we prepared, and you have a nice reciprocity agreement with Pennsylvania, and now we can't even fill our own classrooms. So I'm very familiar with the problem, and it is one that we're experiencing nationally. I would like to begin simply by saying there are no other professions without teachers. And I think often our larger society forgets that when they think about the status of the teaching profession and some of the things that have been said about teachers, when in fact we are vital to the economy and the prosperity of the people in our country. Just a little bit of background in terms of who I work for. The National Center on Education and the Economy does a lot of international benchmarking and informed a lot of the work in the Maryland Blueprint. It's fascinating to watch it sort of morph into the legislation and then the opportunity/compliance. And so I'm taking a few notes since we're starting a commission in Pennsylvania to do something very similar. Let me speak first about how important it is in our success in Pillar 2 to have a coalition of people who will coordinate with one another, collaborate with one another at the district level and at the higher ed level. The process of systematizing a really robust and vital and sustainable teacher pipeline begins with attracting people into the profession, preparing those people, inducting and supporting teachers in their first years, and then retaining them, which is the intent, which apparently you do very well here at the 92% rate, which is phenomenal, and retaining them by allowing them to continue to grow, but also by creating a sense of teacher agency, which promotes a level of leadership on the part of teachers where they are moving forward in their careers based on advancement according to competence and also their own ability to grow the capacity of their peers. And I think that's the intent behind the career ladder. When we think about attracting people into the profession, we need to think about what we're doing as families when the subject of teaching comes up in any conversations, as well as what we're doing in classrooms as teachers and how we present that profession to the very young minds that are taking it all in and figuring out whether this is something they want to do or not. When I started working with SMCPS, I learned a great deal about some of the phenomenal things you're doing here, and I would just like to highlight that because I think sometimes when you live in the community, you're not always aware of how great the work is that's going on here. So I've met with the folks that are involved with the Teacher Academy of Maryland, which doubled its enrollment. I've met with the folks that lead the apprenticeship program. Today I had the honor of meeting with one of the apprentices who's been here for 3 years now, who's doing a phenomenal job and speaks highly of the support that she is getting in her school at Lexington Park. The partnerships that are already in place with UMGC, with NDMU, I hope I'm getting all the acronyms correct, Towson and SMCM. I hope you guys know what those mean because I'm not sure I can pull that off. And then the idea of relying on a pipeline that might come through TAM and then into the CSM, the College of Southern Maryland. The other piece, too, is leveraging, in many ways, the campus and capitalizing on the shared vision of your superintendent and Eileen Abel, who I just met today, so that you could bring a more of the physical location of teacher preparation programs into the Tri-County area. And I just applaud the efforts that are going on in that regard. This is a joint effort. This will not be solved by one group alone. It requires the work of everybody involved, those who are in the profession, those who might have an interest in the profession, those who prepare those professionals, and those who support those professionals, and all of that begins at home with the family. I have one closing thought that I want to give you that came from a first-year teacher that I had a chance to talk with today. And she said, and this is, I'm pretty sure I got this quote pretty close to exact, "I didn't know if I could do this. And now I know I don't want to do anything else." Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. We certainly appreciate all your time and support. At this time, I would like to invite the panelists to come forward. Dr. Deb Denny is the principal at Leonardtown Middle School. Dr. Jeff Marr is the Chief Strategic Officer. Ms. Sarah Penrod is the President of the Education Association of St. Mary's County. And Ms. Tammy McCourt is the Assistant Superintendent of Fiscal Services. So we will begin our panel discussion with Dr. Denny, who will share information about Objective 1, recruiting and supporting high-quality and diverse teachers. I think you can actually stay right there.
The mics are hot.
That's not good. Have to be careful what I say. Good evening, everyone. For as long as I've been a part of SMCPS, 20-something years, we have had, SMCPS, we've had a commitment to recruiting and supporting highly qualified and diverse teachers to meet our workforce needs. As a recruitment specialist, that's what I was at HR when one of my many hats in SMCPS with the school system. I was responsible for organizing the recruitment efforts. While I am no longer a part of my HR family, which I still call them, I can assure you that recruitment efforts remain very strong. Just this school year alone, we have participated in recruitment efforts by participating in job fairs at a variety of colleges and universities throughout Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And COVID has taught us to be very creative in our recruitment efforts. So when it's difficult to leave the county, SMCPS partners with Career Fairs Plus to host online job fairs. And this allows school-based administrators like myself and some other colleagues that I see present, the central office personnel, the supervisors, and everybody, to interview highly qualified candidates without having to travel very far, which also saves the system some money as well. Data published by the Pew Research Center about 3 years ago showed that although there has been an increase in the number of, say, Asian Americans, Blacks, Hispanic teachers nationally, that increase has not kept pace with the rapid diversification of the general US population. And as such, we are all fighting for the same scarce resource, whether you're in Pennsylvania or Ohio or Maryland, we're all still fighting for the very same scarce resource when it comes to hiring diverse teachers. So with this knowledge, SMCPS has not only stepped up recruiting efforts with historically Black colleges and universities, as Dr. Farrell said earlier, but we have also partnered with Diversity in Ed, which is the largest network of minority education candidates, in an attempt to meet the needs of our students, because ultimately that's what we're here for, to meet the needs of our students. The blueprint got one thing right with Pillar 2. Because as a site administrator, I can tell you that diversifying our educational system is one of the utmost importance if we want our historically underrepresented students to succeed. It is no secret that when students have the opportunity to learn from teachers who share the same cultural experiences as there is a documented improvement in test scores, in course grades, in attendance, everything. So this translates really into a greater likelihood that more students will be college and career ready, and that's what we want. So in closing, I think the proverb, charity begins at home, is quite fitting for what we have to do as a system, because we have to take care of our own first before we can help others. So if every principal, like myself, makes an effort to hire one male, because yes, they're in the minority as well, one male and one diverse candidate at our sites, then SMCPS will be all the better. And we can begin to do so by grooming our own students. When I say charity begins at home, that's what I mean. SMCPS can begin to groom our own students to go into the teaching profession. It could begin by running an Educators Rising after-school program, or by hosting a TAM student in our buildings as site leaders, so that even in middle school, we can begin to plant the seeds of becoming a teacher. So I'm almost certain that Dr. Mara will talk about growing our own, so I'm not going to steal his thunder this afternoon. Suffice it to say, at the rate things are going nationally with the current shortage of teachers, we need to begin our efforts at home. So I'm glad that we're all in this together. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Denny. Next, we will hear from Dr. Marr, who will be sharing Objective 2 and 3, changes to teacher preparation programs and state licensure, as well as professional development and induction programs for our teachers.
Thank you. And thank you, Dale. One of the key objectives in Pillar 2 is to enhance the status of the profession of teachers. And to do this, the legislation really looked first at teacher preparation programs. It looked at that as part of it, in addition to, as we'll talk about later, increasing salary and implementing a career ladder, but looking at the rigor of those teacher education programs. To address that, that means that they've done things like increasing the GPA that's required, so increasing it to a 3.0 to get into a teacher education program, as well as providing a year-long practicum or intern experience. And those are meant to give those student teachers or those working through it that experience deeply embedded into a classroom before they take over their own, especially in a master's program or such program like that. Additionally, Maryland adopted new licensure requirements for teachers, which is a shift from its certification process that has been in place for decades. These new requirements are in place for performance-based assessments such as EdTPA or additional coursework that is needed, such as courses in the science of reading, both for new teachers and for those coming in from other states. In addition, the new licensure regulations change the way credit counts are done or other courses that are brought in and that are offered by the school system. So it's going to alter the way in which we provide those coursework for our current staff and for future staff that come in. By providing a rigorous pathway, it also creates challenges in an already strained teacher recruitment pipeline, as Dr. Denny mentioned. We have challenges in recruiting minority candidates, and we also have challenges in recruiting all candidates right now. The teacher pipeline in Maryland has shrunk by over a quarter over the last decade, with 500 fewer teacher candidates coming annually out of Maryland institutions than there were just 10 years ago. So with just about 1,500 teacher graduates from Maryland colleges, there aren't enough teachers to fill over 5,500 vacancies annually across the state. In fact, 1,500 teachers are what's hired annually by one county like Montgomery or Prince George's County alone in the state of Maryland. Therefore, we do have to seek new and innovative pathways to grow our own next generation of teachers. To that end, we have Grow Your Own initiatives. As Dr. Denny mentioned, the Teacher Academy of Maryland hosted right here, and those teachers are actually here with us this evening, where we have a number of our future teachers sitting in our high school classrooms now. In fact, several of them over the years have joined us and have stayed with us as teachers over these last few years. In addition, pre-service teacher preparation pathways and working with our college partners and how we can support those future teachers locally as well as those who are up the road and bringing them down here to St. Mary's County in Southern Maryland. In addition, we have the apprentice program, which is a pilot program we've been working with for a couple of years, funded by the Maryland Leads Grant Program that is working with future teachers. And then also providing a good teacher reimbursement and direct pay options for our current teachers who are working on teacher certification. All of those help. Once we've hired that great group of educators, we know that it's important for them to be supported, successful, and staying with us. That means providing a differentiated and comprehensive teacher induction program and supporting them in their first years with us. That includes professional development and mentoring and site-based coaching and coursework supports for all of those teachers to make sure that they are successful working with our students. We're proud of the impact of those programs and all of the efforts in our county. As Dr. Farrell mentioned, 92% of our teachers, in fact 92% of our new teachers stay with us. And if you look at what the national trends are, that far exceeds that. But as it's been mentioned several times, it's really great to see a full room here because it does take the work of all of us to get this done.
Thank you, Dr. Marr. I did forget to mention, go ahead. I did forget to mention there are blue cards on your table, so if you have questions for the panelists, please jot down a question and then someone will come around and collect the cards so we can ask them at the end. So next we will hear from Ms. Penrod, sharing information about the development of the career ladder and supporting and encouraging teachers to become nationally board certified.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to ask, are there any educators in here that have completed National Board Certification or are working on it right now? Yeah. A whole lot of you. Congratulations. So you all can attest to the fact that it is a very challenging program to complete. It takes a lot of time to complete. It is not a simple process. The amount of work involved is tremendous. So we do have a number of supports available and incentives for people to complete that program. We just actually ratified a negotiated agreement that includes a level 2 on the career ladder incentive of $500 for each successfully completed component of National Board Certification, of which there are 4 different components. So that would be a total of $2,000 that you can potentially get. SMCPS has also held information sessions. They held information sessions about how to expand the program and bring in more diverse candidates to it. Sorry, I keep touching my phone. It's been a long day. I left my notes on the printer at the office, right? So we all know that. SMCPS has a network of central office staff and current National Board Certificate holders. Some of you may be with that program. The Education Association of St. Mary's County and Maryland State Education Association also offers some supports. We have a mentorship program through the association that pairs National Board certificated candidates to mentors one-on-one. So if you need some support going through that program, even if it's just oh my gosh, this is really hard, someone to commiserate with, these people have already been through the program and they know how it works. One of the bigger incentives, one might think is bigger, is the salary incentive for it. The career ladder is a requirement of the blueprint legislation, and they require us to have a career ladder starting in FY26. I think Dr. Farrell misspoke earlier. So FY26 is the legislative start date for implementing a career ladder salary scale. We just negotiated to start that starting salary of $60,000. Could we get $600,000 of $60,000? Oh, of $60,000, and that's actually $60,500 here, starting July 1st of 2024. So that is 1 year ahead of legislation, and that allows us to be a little bit more competitive with our neighboring counties. And luckily, our awesome superintendent has said that he is willing to fund the negotiated agreement come heck or high water, so we're really grateful for that, and that's what helped us ratify this. But within that career ladder, we have a level 3, and that is for our teachers that have National Board Certification. And if you have National Board, you're going to get an extra $10,000 added to your base salary. And if you work at a blueprint school, you get an extra $7,000 on top of that. I don't know about you, but I think an extra $17,000 onto my salary would be really awesome. We also, separate to that, we have a memorandum of understanding that will give folks who are assigned to a blueprint school right now or going to transfer to a blueprint school. If you don't have National Board Certification yet and you would like to go through that process, you can get $7,000 to go through that process. So that is just for the blueprint schools. For those that are currently there or transferring there, we didn't leave people out who are already there, we promise you. So you can get $7,000 effectively early if you start that process. And then once you complete that process, then that career ladder tier 3 money kicks in. So to explain the different levels of this career ladder, I said level 3, level 2, level 1. Level 1 is where all certificated teachers will fall, and counselors here in St. Mary's County. So that is the starting scale For everybody who is a certified, fully certified, with your standard professional certificate, will get $60,500 starting next year. Level 2 is the incentive to get the national board. So if you were going through the process, that is that $500 per successfully completed component, or going for a master's degree. Okay, if you would prefer a master's degree over national board, go you. National board gets you the extra money. So that's what we have been telling people to go for. Level 3 is that you already have national board certification, and that is where you will find that extra $10,000 or $17,000 if you're at a blueprint school. There is a level 4 that we haven't even looked at yet, and that is going to be for folks that do have national board, but those are separate leadership jobs that we will have to figure out where people go. But right now we're looking at level 1, 2, and 3 for starting in July 1st. So we're really excited about that.
Thank you. Our final panelist is Mrs. Tammy McCourt, who will be discussing educator compensation and funding of the blueprint requirements.
So whereas Sarah was talking about where we're at now, I'm going to take you back a few years. So the first phase of the blueprint compensation increases per statute required a 10% increase between 2019 and 2024 by June 30th of 2024. And for every 1% increase, it cost the school district approximately $1 million for teacher salary increases. Our salaries have increased from $42,000 before 2019 to now $47,376 for our first year conditional teachers, and from $46,500 to now $52,452 to our teachers with SPC. So we've indeed met the 10% increase. We received state support initially in the form of non-recurring teacher salary incentive grants, with a substantial portion of the ongoing funding support coming from our local funding agents, the county commissioners. The second phase of the compensation increase requires that $60,000 starting teacher salary to be in place no later than July 1st, 2026. As shared by Ms. Penrod, we've successfully agreed to the career ladder scale that will meet this blueprint compensation requirement when our teachers come back to the schoolhouse in the fall. But this comes with a price tag of $8.7 million of recurring dollars, of which we are seeking full funding support from our county commissioners. The initial state projections when the blueprint legislation passed included a projected 2025 state funding increase of $5 million. And it also included no additional local support. But unfortunately, the first blush at the FY25 state aid to St. Mary's County is a 0% increase. So that's put us in a bit of a predicament. 82% of our budget funds salaries and benefits. An $8.7 million reduction in other budget lines, it's not feasible to meet this mandate and continue with the instructional programs and extracurricular activities that our students expect and deserve. So an increase in local revenues is being requested to cover this mandate. It's important to note that while the state passed this legislation, it has included additional funding in the state's budget to support school districts across the state. Funding to all school districts is wealth equalized. So what this means is as a county's wealth increases, the level of state support decreases. And a county's wealth is determined based on the property assessment values as well as the income of the residents as compared to the rest of the state. In layman's terms, in St. Mary's County, for every dollar to be spent on education per the state's funding formula, approximately 50% should be from the state and the remaining 50% locally funded. So as an example, The blueprint requires that all classroom teachers receive that $10,000 salary increase if they're national board certified, and the additional $7,000 if they're at a blueprint designated school. But it's often assumed that since this is a state requirement, a state mandate, that this funding should come entirely from the state. But for every $10,000 for the NBC, approximately $5,000 is coming from the state, and the other $5,000 is expected to be funded locally. Additional compensation increases required under the blueprint are a $5,000 salary increase for lead teachers, $10,000 increase for distinguished teachers, $15,000 increase for professor distinguished teachers, and $15,000 for distinguished principals, as well as $6,000 to $8,000 increases for teachers earning maintenance for NBC, all per state statute. To implement these state mandates requires the continued partnership with our local funding agents.
Thank you, Ms. McCourt. While we have already implemented and achieved many of the requirements under the blueprint, we know we still have more ground to cover. We will continue to partner with colleges and universities to develop teacher candidates who are ready, willing, and able to step into a classroom and make positive connections with our students. We will continue to find ways to diversify our teaching force with strong partnerships with the NAACP, HBCUs, and diversity in education. We recently welcomed several new nationally board certified teachers and administrators who achieved this year. We will continue to encourage teachers to pursue their national board certification and continue to support them as they go through their assessment process. New Maryland licensure regulations will go into effect very quickly, April 1st, and this will convert Maryland certification to a Maryland teaching license. We will begin issuing teaching licenses for individuals new to teaching in Maryland, and will systematically convert current certifications to licensures when the current certificates expire. And when the proposed negotiated agreement is adopted, we will implement our career ladder in SMCPS beginning July 1. We will continue our collaborative efforts with EASMIC to develop and implement a level 4 teacher, expanding the proposed career ladders from 3 levels to 4, and we will develop a career ladder for our school administrators reflecting the required classroom time depending on their position. And lastly, as the blueprint requires, we will implement a peer review system allowing educators to provide feedback and support to their peers. As demonstrated this evening, the blueprint for Maryland's future is extensive. Pillar 2 has several major components and requirements, which we are working together with our stakeholders to improve education. And we will do this all for our most important stakeholders, our students. So at this time, we'll take some questions from the audience for our panelists to respond to. The first question that we got already was for Dr. Denny. How has recruitment of diverse candidates looked in your school, and what challenges have you experienced?
It's funny you should ask that. I was just talking to someone this afternoon and looking at our numbers, and really when we look at the county's numbers of professional staff, I think we're looking at 7% or thereabout, and we are currently at 6%. So we still have work to do. Over the years, we have tried to do it, but one of the biggest challenges, which when I often contact St. Mary's College all the time, because one of the things I said, St. Mary's College also helps to put a roof over my head and food on my table because my husband is a professor there. So I always try to look at St. Mary's College first, and it's been difficult to find diverse candidates there. Over the years, it seems as if there are fewer and fewer that's going into the profession. So I think one of the biggest challenge would be working hard with our university partners in terms of their recruiting, because we can't get the candidates in the schools if we don't have them coming from the colleges. So for me at Leonardtown Middle, I can't say that we have a very diverse staff. I would be lying if I say that. Do I try to get a very diverse staff? I do. Every single time I interview candidates. But those candidates, that pipeline is drying up or has dried up. We just don't have it. So that's been our difficult problem. And I think that's where we need to look to our university partners and their recruiting efforts to see what we could get.
I think the new Maryland Teacher Fellowship might help, and I have an idea which is that if you have a 3.3 or above and you are willing to agree to teach for X number of years at a low-income school, they will cover your tuition and a living stipend. So for our MAT students this year, they got $30,500. And I'm hoping that's going to help, and I have an idea about how to beg MHEC to let us fund undergrads with it as well.
Great.
I do think that a huge obstacle is the cost. I think that a lot of people are opting out of teacher ed at all, or opting to go through alternative routes because it's expensive. And while I'm talking, I also want to say, Dr. Marr was talking about how the blueprint is specifying things teacher ed programs will need to do. Actually, in the state of Maryland, our program already meets all of those requirements, and I believe that's true of most of my 22 or 23 colleagues who run other teacher ed programs in the state. We already have phenomenal teacher ed in the state.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. The next question is for Dr. Marr. How does the teacher induction program look different for a first-year teacher versus a third-year teacher?
That's a really good question. And actually, I want to back that up a little bit too, because even our first-year teachers all come with different experiences and readiness levels. So within our teacher cohort, when I was working with teacher induction programs many years ago, you'd have a number of people who came fully certified as new teachers, and you might have some veterans who are coming. And now you have a third group, which are those who are graduating with a degree, but not necessarily all of the teacher credentials. So now we have to look at how do we differentiate for all those new teachers as they come in, whether they're fully credentialed and experienced from outside of Maryland or outside of St. Mary's County, whether they're fully credentialed as a first-year teacher out of college, or whether or not they have any teaching experiences and need to get those coursework. So that preparation starts there. Then as they progress through those first couple of years, the first year includes a lot of coursework with us, or some professional development and really intensive mentoring support. But again, that mentoring support looks different if you've had student teaching or if you haven't. But by the time they get to their third year, second and third year, we want to turn over some of that independence and coaching to the site level, where they're working directly with them and giving them additional leadership opportunities in their team or with their colleagues, because then that helps them to grow some more. So it really has to be differentiated the same way that when you work with students in a classroom, one size doesn't fit all, and we can't have that same rule with teachers.
Perfect. Thank you. Sarah, I think the next one's for you. How does the association support leadership development among teachers?
That's a really good question. So we actually offer a number of professional development opportunities for both certificated teachers and other certificated staff and our education support professionals. A lot of that does come from the Maryland State Education Association, and it can be done virtually, or the NEA, which is virtual or in person. There are a lot of different conferences available that you can go to, that we can pay for you to go to develop your leadership skills in a variety of different areas.
Thank you. Tammy, I think this next one's for you. How do school systems and county governments plan ahead for funding in future years? For example, the next 2, 3, or 4 years?
Well, that's a bit of a challenge. So we have challenges such as inflationary increases, health insurance increases, that we just don't know what those numbers are going to be. The knowns are, what are salary increases going to be over the next couple of years? The unknowns are, how many people are going to be successful? How many of our teachers are going to be successful achieving the MBC, and that will be an automatic increase for each of those years in our salary. We do already know what the statutory increases are per state for our foundation increases. However, we don't know what proportionate share of that foundation money we'll be getting from the state because it depends on what the wealth of our county is as compared to the wealth of the rest of the counties. So we can do some preliminary 2, 3, 4, 5-year forecasting, but the actuals we won't know until that time comes before us.
Thank you. Jeff, this might be for you. What is a blueprint school?
Okay. So in the blueprint, and this, you've heard it referenced several times, where those teachers who are assigned at blueprint schools can receive additional stipends for having national board certification. That comes from an element of Pillar 2 in the legislation that says if you work at a low-performing school, this additional salary increment is there. The state has identified low-performing schools across the state. St. Mary's County has no schools that met that criteria of being a low-performing school across the state. However, it did allow for the local education agency, the school system, to identify up to 10% of its schools as blueprint schools. And so we looked at the criteria of, what is the staffing at those schools? What is the student performance? What other challenges or needs might there be? For example, if there's high percentage of students on free and reduced meals. And so with a collective look at all of our schools to identify 10%, last school year, the board identified 3 schools. They are Great Mills High School, Spring Ridge Middle School, and George Washington Carver Elementary School as our 3 blueprint schools. And those are the 3 schools that would receive this additional funding, or the staffing at those schools would receive this additional funding for national board certification as one of those elements. They also might also be included in some other programs in Pillar 4 that you heard referenced at one of our previous Pillar town halls as well.
Thank you. So the next question is the change from teacher certificates to teacher license just a change in name, or are the criteria to earn the same? If not, what are the differences? I will take that one because I just attended an MSDE training on this. No, it is not just a change in the title. There are major changes to what it takes to first obtain a teaching license in the state of Maryland, and then there are big changes in what is required to maintain a teaching license in Maryland, and that is for everyone, not just teachers, administrators as well. And the biggest change is currently you have one certificate with several endorsements. Depending on what license you get, you may have multiple licenses. So let's just take Dr. Smith. He has a teaching license, that's 1. He has an administrator license to be a principal, that's 2. He has a superintendent license, which is 3. And if he was a specialist, like a media specialist, he would have a 4th license. So he can have 4 separate licenses based on the certifications that he holds. So major changes. MSDE has promised us that they will be delivering training to all teachers throughout the state of Maryland. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like and when it's going to come out, but they have promised us that that will happen. So,
Dr. Farrell, can I add something to that?
yes.
Just for those out there wondering what the recertification process would look like, we're used to completing classes for credits, and we have X number of credits. That process is going to look differently, but from what I'm looking at personally, I think it actually might be a little easier to recertify now with the new program that you'll be learning about. So if that is a concern of yours, take a deep breath, because I do think that they're bringing actually an improvement to that.
So I'm going to, since you were just talking, I'm going to give this next question to you. It was either you or Tammy, so I thought, okay, let's see. Will all existing teachers serving our students be compensated at least as well as the new starting salary for new teachers?
If you have a standard professional certificate or an APC, yes, you will be. Our conditionally certified teachers are actually going to start lower than that. We are hopeful that we can eliminate that someday. I believe we did actually negotiate that going away in the tentative agreement. So starting FY25, If you are fully certified, yes, you will start at least at the $60,500. If you are still working on your full certification, try to do your best to get to that finish as soon as possible so we can get you up there.
So the next question, Dr. Marr, is there a discussion at the state to include media specialists, IRTs, into the NBC funding? Currently, they aren't considered classroom teachers per the blueprint.
Yeah, the state has, currently the guidance talks about specific, it really looks specifically at classroom, because the intention of the Kirwan Commission and the authors of the blueprint were to provide that compensation directly to those within the classroom. Again, that's what's in the legislation. There's a lot of interpretation of where that comes now, but the last guidance that was provided by MSDE was directly towards those teaching at least 50% of their time in the classroom.
Thanks. And then the last question, Ms. McCourt, I'm going to slide this one to you. I'm a nationally board certified teacher, but I'm teaching in an area that I'm not nationally board certified in. Will I qualify for the $10,000?
As long as you're a classroom teacher.
Correct. Thank you. All right, so that is the end of our questions for our panelists. Thank you all so much. At this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Dr. Smith for a few remarks before we split into our table talk discussions. Dr. Smith.
I cannot say enough about the talent gathered before you, representing some of our best leadership in schools, some of our best leadership at central office, some of our best leadership with all of our staff, and some of our very best leadership with trying to figure out how to pay for all of it. Ms. McCourt did touch on the fact that there are so many aspirational elements in the blueprint, and yet there isn't necessarily the attendant funding to make them a reality. And when asked, the representatives from MSDE, AIB, Blueprint, whomever, they say we all have to make tough decisions. We have to prioritize, we need to make tough decisions. A fairly hilarious thing to say to anybody in education, we make tough decisions every single day. And one of the toughest is how do you devote yourself to a career that starts at less than $60,000 a year. So Ms. Penrod is right. I have said come heck or high water, I think I said how, we need to do everything we can to make sure that everybody involved in education recognizes how important it is to support and respect classroom teachers and all those who support classroom teachers. There is no better profession in the world than being involved in the education of others, whether it be a 3-year-old or a 30-year-old. They all present their own educational challenges. We have done incredible work in St. Mary's County, and we have done it very effectively and exceptionally efficiently, recognizing that we are one of the lowest funded school systems in the state. 4 years ago, we were last. 3 years ago, we were last. 2 years ago, we were second from the bottom, and this year, we've made it to 21 out of 24. There are 3 school systems that have less than us when it comes to educating children. That being said, we do some of the very best work. And we do some of the very best work because of the people before you and the people in this room. So I don't know what the future holds, but I can tell you that our commitment to kids is unwavering, and our commitment to kids is predicated on our commitment to those who work with them every single day. So I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. I appreciate all of our community and our higher ed partners, because the one thing that we need to do, absolutely no matter what, is we need to get with our young people, and we need to inspire them to see themselves as teachers. Because we will all be teachers. We have all been teachers. We will all be teachers again. but we need to inspire our young people to see themselves in this profession. It is truly one of the very greatest gifts you can give to yourself. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you so we can do tables and stuff like that. But thank you very much, all of you, for coming out today.
Yeah. You could tell them we're going to end our stream now.
So we will end our streaming of this, and we will break into tabletop discussions. So we will have 4 focus groups for tabletops.